Hey everybody, it's Crystal here at the Fibromyalgia Pain Chronicles. So, this video I've been promising for quite a few weeks, and this video is actually about tips to help you when you're applying for medical or disability benefits for your medical conditions. And hopefully, actually these tips should help strengthen your case when you're applying for financial disability benefits, medical benefits, short-term disability, SSDI, Social Security Disability Insurance, which is what you pay into if you work, or SSI. A lot of this information is based on the benefit system in the U.S., but some of the principles could be useful in other countries. So real quick, the difference between SSDI and SSI. SSI is also commonly called welfare. It's Social Security Income is what it stands for. And then there's SSDI, which is Social Security Disability Insurance. SSDI, if you work and until you retire, you'll collect SSDI. However, if you become disabled before retirement age and you meet the criteria, you could qualify to collect your SSDI benefits if you're disabled. And SSDI is based on what you have earned over time. It's like a really big prorated amount. However, in order to collect SSDI, you have to have 40, what they call 40 work credit hours. Not exactly sure of the formula of how they figure it out, but I think like 1 year of work is equivalent to a quarter of, I don't know, the 40 credit hours. I looked at the formula before, and I'm not really good at math, and I was just kind of like, yeah, so I suck at math. And basically, if you qualify for SSDI, that means you had enough qualifying work credit hours. And if you have a qualifying medical condition, you can collect it. SSI, sometimes people apply for benefits and they don't have enough work credits, and then they get SSI, Social Security Income. And a lot of people with disabilities end up, because they end up getting sick at a young age, so they don't have enough work credit hours, so they end up qualifying for SSI. And SSI, I think it's like $774 a month. It's not a lot. So hopefully, if you're applying for medical disability benefits, you have enough work credit hours to get SSDI, because it's more than SSI usually. So here's the process. One of the things is that people don't understand is that they apply for benefits and they think it's solely based on your diagnosis. It's not. Basically, you can have whatever diagnosis in the world, but if it's not interfering with your daily, like activities of daily living or being able to work, substantial gainful employment, then they won't see you as disabled. So here's the thing, like with fibromyalgia, it does qualify as a disability at Social Security Administration for being awarded SSI or SSDI. However, what a lot of people make the mistake of is they go to the doctor, and a lot of times they don't go to a specialist. They either go to a PCP or a GP. You need to go to a specialist, and you need to go and keep going. And when what a lot of people do is they just go and say, well, I don't feel good and I'm in pain, and they don't talk about how the fibromyalgia is interfering with their life. So first off, if you're thinking of applying, wait just a little bit, and you need to go to your doctors and discuss how your disability is interfering with your ability to functionally work at a job, complete daily tasks at home, or activities of daily living. Now, for example, would be you know, a lot of us will vacuum and then it will put us in a flare up, or we have to go and lay down afterwards. That is if you can vacuum. If more days than not, and you need to let the doctor know these things. You need to have these conversations with the doctor and say, like, I haven't been able to vacuum for like 6 weeks because I've been so fatigued and in so much pain. And then when I do vacuum, it actually exasperates or makes my fibro symptoms worse. So number one, you have to be open and talk about how it's interfering with your life. Another thing is, don't just focus on the pain of fibromyalgia. Talk about the fibro fog, and I'll give you a couple examples with me. There's been a couple times my fibro fog was so bad that when I was driving, all of a sudden I had no idea where I was at, and it was really and I pulled over, and at the time I had called my ex-husband, and I was just like, I'm driving and I don't know where I'm at and I forget where I'm going. And that was the fibro fog. And then he had to talk me through it, and I went back home. And then the other thing, like with fibro fog, you can talk about is like how, because of the fibro fog, you're missing out on details or not completing tasks at work as efficiently or detailed because of the fibro fog. It's interfering with your ability to do quality work. The other thing is the fatigue. Talk about the fatigue, like how when you go to the doctor, talk to them about, I take a shower and then I'm so exhausted I have to lay down afterwards. Talk to your doctor about all the activities you had to cut out on. Talk to them how it interferes with your social life. Like, I used to be able to go out like every night of the week, and now I'm lucky if I feel well enough to go out once or twice a month, and it's usually not for long periods of time, and it's not anything that is strenuous. If you were someone like me, I used to hike a lot. Like, I could do 10 miles like that, like nothing. I used to play sports. I can't do any of that stuff now because of the pain and because of the fatigue. And the other thing is that, and this is another point to bring up, the more physical activity that stresses my body, and it increases the pain, then I become nauseous, and at times I will pray to the porcelain god and get sick in the toilet. So you need to talk to your doctor about all those little things so that they document it. The other thing is with fibromyalgia is there's a lot of secondary conditions, and you want to make sure that those are all documented, and not just with the doctors that are treating your fibro, but every doctor you see. So, for example, I have Raynaud's syndrome because of the fibro. I have IBS and I have migraines. So, regardless of what doctor I go to, I tell them all of my conditions, and then sometimes when I go to my pain management doctor, I'll say my IBS flared up on whatever. I'll tell them the dates because I keep a journal, or I save it. I have a calendar in my iPhone, so I can type in there things like about my symptoms or whatever, so when I go to the doctor I can just pull up my calendar. But there's been times I go to the doctor that's treating my fibromyalgia, and I'll say my IBS was so bad and hurting so bad it actually caused my fibro to flare. So yeah, it's not just about having a diagnosis, it's how your medical condition interferes with your daily activities. And then the other thing is you have to talk to your doctors about that and tell them everything. I mean, quite honestly, you can even tell them, you don't have to even be detailed, but say it interferes, like if you're in a relationship where you're married, you can tell them it also interferes with your ability to be intimate with your partner. And say, you're not able to do it. You're just too sick. And then tell them that, and then there's times that you're so fatigued that no matter how fatigued you are, you go to sleep at night, and then you can't sleep. And then you're up all night because of pain, and then you're not sleeping. So, but yeah, the big thing is you got to tell all your doctors the details, not just the ones that are treating you for fibromyalgia. If you're going to a pain specialist and you're seeing rheumatologists for fibromyalgia, and let's say you have migraines or seizure disorder and you see a neurologist for that, and then you go to your primary care doctor, or even if you go to physical therapy, Across the board, you need to tell them the same thing, how it interferes. And, give examples like some of the examples I just gave. Now, so that's what they look at when you apply for disability benefits, as far as how does the disability or medical condition interfere with your ability to do tasks and carry on a normal life. Okay. Number 2, what strengthens your case is not just applying on fibromyalgia alone. So if you have other medical conditions, list every single one. So for example, I have fibromyalgia, I have Raynaud syndrome, I have IBS, I have migraines, I have arthritis and bursitis in both my hips, I have arthritis in both my knees, and I have patellofemoral syndrome of both knees, and something else I can't remember. I'm having fog. Anyways, when you apply, whatever medical conditions you have, write everyone down. As I should say, write it down if you have it medically documented somewhere with a doctor. So if you, for example, have, I don't know. Okay, I'll give an example. Let's say you have slight scoliosis, but you haven't told your current doctors and it's been like a long time, and you don't have documentation, and maybe you're diagnosed when you're younger with it. If you don't have medical evidence of it, you can't write down the condition because there's no way to prove it. However, if you have medical documentation that shows you have a variety of medical conditions, then list every single one. So I'm going to give you an example. It's not fibromyalgia. It's something a little bit, I think, easier to explain. So diabetes is not necessarily considered a disabling condition alone with Social Security. So they don't consider diabetes a standalone medical condition that's debilitating. However, with diabetes, you can develop a lot of other issues. Like you could, if you're diabetic, maybe you have high cholesterol, hypertension, you get migraines when your sugars are out of whack, you get neuropathy pains. If it goes unchecked for a long time, diabetes can affect your eyesight. Maybe you've lost some, eyesight with that. I also know a couple of people with diabetes who it affected their bladder functioning. I don't know what, like their bladder would spasm or something. So anyways, diabetes might not get you qualified with just that diagnosis alone, but all those other things together, they would consider you have multiple conditions, and that's what makes you disabled. So one of the things with applying for benefits and Social Security Administration is they might say, oh, Crystal has migraines, but her migraines aren't frequent enough where she has to miss weeks and months of work. However, she has Raynaud syndrome, IBS, arthritis, bursitis, fibromyalgia, and so all those conditions together are disabling. So, list all of your medical conditions that you have documented. Now, to make your application process go a little bit faster, before you apply, try to obtain as much of your medical records as possible. I know for some people where we've been going to doctors for years and years and years, that is a lot of documentation. The reason why I'm strongly recommending you do get your medical documentation, if you don't already have copies, because I have copies of all my stuff, is what happens is you apply for benefits through Social Security Administration, and they have you sign off on forms that are called consents for release of medical information, and then you list all the doctors or hospitals or emergency rooms you've been, and then Social Security sends it off. Well, the unfortunate thing is some of those places are not going to respond or they won't send it in time. So what I suggest you do, if you don't already have copies, is request copies. and you tell them you're requesting to apply for disability, because they're not supposed to charge you for copies of your medical records if you're applying for disability benefits. Now, in this day and age of technology, there are some medical systems where if you sign up online, you can actually print your clinical notes for each doctor you see. So a good example, I live outside of Cleveland, Ohio, so some of the major hospital systems here are university hospitals, Cleveland Clinic, Metro Health, and then there's the VA. I'm a vet, so I go to the VA. So at Cleveland Clinic and the VA, I can print from home my medical records, the notes that the doctors write. I can print all my diagnoses. I can print all of my medications. I can print what my allergies are. The thing of it is, you just got to sign up on their electronic system, what they call the electronic medical record, and just sign up on their system, and you can print a lot of that stuff at home, or the library or whatnot, what have you. And then you have it. And then places by me, like Metro Health, I can print like my visit summary, but not the actual clinical notes that are written. So it'll show the summary, it's like the basic visit information, but not the specific details or the notes written by the doctor. So, basically collect what you can. You can put in writing requests, and 9 times out of 10, facilities are required to give you your stuff within 30 days. And you tell them it's for disability application, and they're not supposed to charge you. Some hospital facilities will charge you to print off your records or make copies. And if you tell them you're applying for disability through Social Security Administration in the U.S., they're not supposed to charge you. So let's say you're able to get like 70% of your clinical notes. Okay, great. Your medical notes. In the United States, you can apply online and still sign off the consent for release information for all your doctors, even though you have 70% of it. And what you can do is you can, once you apply online, wait, I think 7 to 10 business days, and then call to find out what office your case is assigned to, and say, hey, I have some of my medical records, and they'll assign you to a local office. And you can go and drop off your records, or I would suggest sending it certified mail so you have a signature. So here's the other thing. If you get copies of your records or you print them from home, make sure you make an extra set for yourself. Don't send your only copies away, because if they get lost or misplaced, that's it. And then you have to go through the whole process of getting them again. So basically you could apply online, then wait 7 to 10 business days, call to find out what local office your case has been assigned to, and then you can say, okay, I need the address, and I have some of my medical records I want to mail in, and then send it certified mail, because someone has to sign off that they got it. But you're also going to have an extra set just in case they screw up, because, that doesn't ever happen, right? So the other thing is, you can get a disability attorney, and a lot of times what they'll do is they won't pick up your case before you apply. So you apply online, and then you can contact a disability attorney and say, hey, I applied online. I have some of my medical records. I'm having a hard time obtaining medical records from other facilities and doctors. And they usually will do a free consultation, and then they'll let you know if they'll take your case or not. And if they'll take your case, they'll have you sign off on releases of information also, and they'll obtain whatever record you weren't able to get. And the thing of it is usually when there's an attorney involved, medical facilities are going to release those records pretty quickly, within that 30 days, because they know, and they can't charge either. The other thing, so, a lot of people, what they do is they apply, and then they wait, and then they get denied, and then they get an attorney. You can get an attorney right away. And here's the thing, for a disability attorney, per law in the United States, I don't know how it is in other countries, they can only take a percentage of any retro pay you get paid if you win your case. So for example, let's say you apply online, you got some of your medical records, you hook up with a disability attorney, they represent you, get the rest of your medical records, and it takes a year and you're approved for benefits. What they can do is they can take, I forget what the amount is. They can't take any more than up to, I think it's 30%, but no more than $6,000. Like there's a cap by law. So let's say you apply today, which is June 20th, 2017, and you get approved June 20th of 2018. That means you get a whole, year retroactive pay, and the attorney gets 30% of that retro pay, but no more than $6,000. However, if you collected the majority of your medical documentation, what it does is it expedites your application with Social Security Administration, because they're not waiting on medical documentation. That's like half the battle. Speaking with disability attorneys and caseworkers at Social Security Administration, they say that it sometimes takes 6 months to get someone's medical information. Well, if you give them the majority of it right off the bat, that can save you almost 6 months worth of time. Now, the other cool thing is, let's say you apply and then you have most of your medical documentation. You get a disability attorney and they help you get the rest of what you couldn't get, and then it's processed. If you're approved for benefits from Social Security Administration in less than 6 months, you don't get retro pay. And if you don't get retro pay, the attorney doesn't get paid. And they can't charge you. It's the law. So if you applied, let's say today's June 20th, 2017, you applied today and you were approved in, did I say July or June? June 20th, 2017. If you applied today and you were approved in November, 5 months from now, you're not going to get any retroactive pay. And the attorney, he doesn't get paid either. And he can't charge you. He can't try to collect. It's the law. He can't. So, and that can happen. Sometimes you get approved before 6 months, because you only get retro pay if you're approved 6 months or later after your application is submitted. And so if you have a disability attorney and you're approved in less than 6 months, then he basically just worked for free, and there's nothing he can do about it, and he can't send you a bill. And if he does, you can sue him because he's violating federal law. So the biggest thing is, some key points to recap, is make sure all of your diagnoses are documented with all the doctors you see. Even if you're going to the neurologist for migraines, you make sure to tell them you have fibromyalgia and everything else you got going on. The other thing is, the more doctors or specialists you see for a variety of things, the stronger your case is when you apply for benefits. Now, for example, some people will have fibromyalgia and they'll have arthritis in their knees like I do, and migraines, and a lot of times they just go to a pain management doctor to manage all those conditions. What I'm going to recommend is, okay, keep going to your pain management doctor to help you try to manage as best as they can your fibro pain. Get yourself linked to a neurologist for the migraines, and go to an orthopedic doctor for your arthritis. The other thing is, a lot of people make the mistake of, is that when they apply for benefits, they don't think, if they went to physical therapy or chiropractor, they don't think to submit that information, submit it, or sign off on the release of information for them to obtain your records if you went to physical therapy or chiropractor. Again, it shows that you've been going to a variety of specialists, and you are, the way they look at it is, you've been seen by all these medical specialists and physical therapy and a chiropractor and a pain management doctor, a rheumatologist, neurologist, and you're not any better. It actually works in your favor the more doctors and specialists you've seen over the years. Another tip I would recommend is, if you apply for benefits, for disability benefits, through Social Security, whether it's whether you have enough work credit hours for SSDI, or if you don't, you are technically applying for SSI. Doesn't matter. The process is still the same. The application process is still the same. The thing that I recommend, which most people don't do, and most disability attorneys won't recommend, is, let's say you apply today, June 20th, 2017. Go to all the pharmacies that you've had your meds filled for the past 5 to 7 years and ask them to print up all of your medication lists that you've had filled. Some places can go back 2 years. Some pharmacies will go back 2 years. I think Target goes, like in the United States, Target, I don't know if they have Target like in other countries like the UK or Australia or Canada. I don't know. But Target is a major chain here, and they have a pharmacy, and they can go back, or at least they used to. It could have changed, but they could go back 3 years and print all of the medications they filled 3 years back. Another place, Giant Eagle, which is a grocery store chain in the United States, but also has a pharmacy. They can, they used to, the last I checked, they were able to go back and print your medications you had filled at their pharmacy going back 5 years. And you're probably going to be like, oh my God, I've had meds filled at so many places. Well, try to remember here, and you're going to submit those med lists of all the meds you've had. The reason why is it shows again that you've tried this whole slew of meds and it hasn't made you any better. And what it is doing is strengthening your case of how sick you are. Like you've been, and I know some people are like, oh man, my med refill list just going back 1 year is going to be hundreds of pages. That's fine. And some pharmacies are pretty cool. They'll just print it for you. But it just shows to Social Security how sick you are. Like if you can present a list of 5 to 7 years, or even 2 to 3 years of all the different medications you've been on and what medications you're taking, it strengthens your case that you've tried all these meds and you are no better off. What was the other thing? There was something else. I talked about the medication lists. Getting documentation or signing off on releases of releasing information from not just the specialist you go to, but if you've been to physical therapy, and I don't care how many times you've been to physical therapy, if you've gone once or 10, you basically want to give Social Security Administration as much history of your medical history and disabilities as possible. So if you've been dealing with this for 10 years, even if 10 years ago you weren't that bad, but you're worse now, all that documentation is going to show your progression of, getting worse or not getting better. Oh, I remember the other point. Also, get a copy of any lab tests you've had done, x-rays, MRIs, CAT scans, not necessarily like the actual x-ray, but the clinical note for it. The other thing is, in the United States, private health insurance companies, like you can go online and sign up and create an account with private insurance companies online. And a lot of them, you can go and look what lab tests you've had done, and you can print back, like let's say, I don't know, I'm trying to think of a healthcare provider, Cigna Insurance in the United States, Cigna. And you have Cigna Insurance and you've had them for 5 years, you could create an account on their website and you can print all of your lab tests that you've had done. It might not break down specifically what each little detail of every blood test or ultrasound or whatever you've had, but it will show a history of you getting all these testing done. Blood tests. And if in some places, like I said here up in outside of Cleveland, Ohio, Cleveland Clinic, the VA, and Metro Health, actually, you can't necessarily print the doctor's notes, but you can print test results of any blood tests you've had, or urine tests, or x-rays, MRIs, that kind of stuff. And you submit all of that. So this video, I probably gave you a whole bunch of information that's like mind-boggling, and that's the other reason why if you apply, you can get an attorney right off the bat. I recommend it because I've read stories of how people applied like 2 or 3 times on their own and then they finally get an attorney, I'm like, apply online, call the attorney the next day. Like if you apply online for Social Security, they give you a confirmation number. And it says like, we received your application. This is your confirmation number of your application for disability benefits and whatever the confirmation number is. And you can print that and you can then call a disability attorney and say, I applied online. And you can tell them, I need help because I'm so sick I can't get all of these records. I have some of them. I don't have all of them. I'd like to be able to request all the records and just hand it to Social Security and cut some of the waiting time of them trying to collect the records. And, you know, most disability attorneys will be receptive to that, especially like if you tell them fibromyalgia, because I've heard stories where people have said they've contacted disability attorneys and they won't take a case if you have fibro, and because they don't really understand it and the ins and outs, and this is kind of the point of this video, is all the different things you need, and then you can get help. But you don't have to wait to apply and be denied to get a disability attorney. You can apply and then hire an attorney after you've put in your application. They won't take your case before you apply though, so you have to apply online first, or you can fill it out in paper. But I used to help clients apply online, and the thing of it is that with fibro and fibro fog and how tired we get, it can be overwhelming. So if you start to apply online, you can save it and then go back later. Like you can do it a little at a time. So you can apply either a paper application or do it online, and then once it's submitted to Social Security, that's when you call the attorney. And you, if you applied online, you can print the confirmation that you did the application. And then if the attorney will, takes your case, then you can say, well, and you hand them one set of your copies of medical records, not both. Like, remember I said, you want 2 sets of everything, one for you to keep and one that you turn over so that if your stuff gets lost, you still have a copy. And you can say, well, I have about 70% of my medical documents, but I was at the emergency room, and you list all of them, and they'll have you sign off a consent to get that information. Or like I said, up where I live, there's a couple of medical facilities that are really bad. They like don't really, I don't want to say names, Southwest General, that they give you a hard time, or they won't give you the information, or they won't send it to Social Security, or they try to charge you even though they are not supposed to by law, Metro Health. So anyways, if you're requesting documents for application for disability benefits through Social Security Administration, they are not allowed to charge you, and you tell them that. And a lot of times what you can do is, let's say, like you have 70% of your medical documents, you have copies of it, and you have a couple of facilities that you don't have it from, you apply online, and you can go in person and say, or you can submit the request in writing and give them a copy, a photocopy of the confirmation that you applied for benefits, so that they know, like, they're not supposed to charge you. Like, some places are like, we charge $10 per request, or $10 for every, 60 pages or something like that. They're not supposed to do that if you're applying for benefits. And if you have an attorney, they ain't even going to try to play that game with an attorney. So basically, one last point before I wrap up and do a quick, summary. The other thing you can do when you apply for benefits is have people write letters of how your disabilities have affected you and how, you've progressed or become more sick over the years. So if you're married or have a significant other, you can ask them to write a letter from their observational point of how your disabilities interfere with your ability to complete daily tasks and work. So you can ask your spouse, significant other, if you used to work and you have a close or still good relationship with someone that you used to work with, you can ask them to write a letter. Like, let's say the last place you work, you had to quit or go out on medical leave because of the disabilities that you're applying for. And let's say, you maintain a friendship with one of your colleagues, see if they'll write a letter. And then you can have like a parent or a sibling. And if you want to make it easier, you can, let's say you're married or have a significant other, you can write up the letter, and ask them to sign it. Or you can write it up and send it to them in email and ask them to edit or add anything. And then, so if you have a couple people write a letter on your behalf of how your disabilities have affected your ability to function normally, you submit those letters with your application too, and it'll strengthen your case. And there was one other thing. Oh, the other thing is if you keep a journal, like you're writing down your symptoms every day, make photocopies of that and send that in. Basically, the more documentation you have, the merrier. And if you're like, oh my goodness, I have thousands upon thousands of pages, good. Then you need to get those thousands and thousands and thousands of pages over to Social Security. They'll be looking at that stack of paper going, oh, hell no, yeah, she's sick. Approved. Okay, maybe not that quickly, but the point of it is that the more documentation you have, the bigger the stack of medical papers and documentation, the better it is for you. Now, some doctors are really good at documenting what you tell them, some not so much, and that's why I tell you to make sure you tell every doctor that you see across the board. Like I said, if you're going to one doctor for migraines, and you can play it off like that, like this. You could say, my fibromyalgia sometimes triggers my migraines. Or, which in my case, that is the case. I get really, really bad muscle tightness and knots and spasms in my back of my shoulders up through my neck. And it triggers headaches and migraines all the time. So my fibro doctor, even though they're not treating me for migraines and they're treating me for the fibro, I'll tell them when I'm like, oh yeah, they'll ask like what your pain level is, what kind of pain you had. And I'll tell them like, whatever, I've had neuropathy pains and my pain levels is 7. And I'll say, I've been also, the fibro has been triggering my migraines more often and headaches and, and I'll tell them, I write stuff down. So if I go and see my pain management doctor every 3 months, for 3 months, I either write it down or document on my calendar. Like I'll write migraine today, headache today, nausea today, vertigo today, fibro fog today. And I'll go back at the appointment. I say, I document it. And I go, oh, since I saw you 90 days ago, I had 62 days of I either had a headache or a migraine. I had a little over 3 weeks of an IBS flare up. I had 12 days of vertigo, and my fibro fog was averaging 2 or 3 times a week, like really bad fibro fog, and that's the whole thing. And the other thing is that, or if you decide to write it in a journal, then make photocopies and give them the photocopies when you go to your doctor's appointment. They'll put it in your chart. They'll look it over. But what it does is it strengthens, your claim for disability benefits and how sick you are. So basically what it comes down to is we end up doing a lot of work to prove that we're sick. But if you do all this work the first time around, it should really strengthen your case and hopefully shorten the time span that you're approved. Is it a guarantee that they'll approve you the first time around? No, but usually your strength, if doing, following these tips is really going to strengthen your claim. And basically it's like you're not giving the Social Security Administration any wiggle room to say, oh no, she's not disabled enough or he's not disabled enough. You're giving them what they call preponderance of proof that you are really sick and you can't work. And the other thing is when you apply for benefits, you can't be working. That's a downside, even if it's part-time. If you're babysitting or something like that, that's a little bit different. But if you have a job and they're going to say no. Even if you're only making $500 a month, they're going to say no because you're making $500 a month, which is crazy. Now, real quick though, people will say, well, like a lot of people will say, well, these, there's a lot of stereotypes and nastiness about people who are on benefits because of disability, and they are like, they can't see that we're sick because we have invisible illnesses. Like, you can't see a migraine, you can't see arthritis, you can't see bursitis, you can't see Raynaud's syndrome, IBS, or fibro, or some of the other ones, invisible illnesses like lupus or MS. However, let's say you apply for benefits and you're approved for SSDI, Social Security Disability Income, because you used to work before and you had enough credit hours. You can still work if you're getting SSDI. It's just you can't make that much. I think the last I checked, it was, and then that was a couple years ago, but if you're on SSDI, you can make, I think it was like $1,140 or $60 a month before taxes. So you could collect SSDI and work a part-time job. However, if you go above that amount designated by Social Security, they consider it substantial gainful activity, and then they can cut your benefits off. So for sake of numbers, because I suck at math, let's say Social Security says you can make $1,200 per month before taxes, before taxes, and you make $1,250. At that point, they're saying that you're engaging in substantial gainful employment and you don't need disability. However, I know it's crazy. It's like, oh, who can live off of $1,250 a month? I know people do it. I know. It's just really hard. But let's say you qualify and you get SSDI, and you get a part-time job and you're making $100 a month. You're fine. You just have to report your earnings, and you might have to pay taxes on it. Now, if you don't have enough work credit hours, and you apply for disability benefits, you would be awarded SSI. You can still work, but the formula is a little bit different. Social Security, how do I explain this so that even I understand it? It's like, sometimes I confuse myself. So let's say you don't have enough work credit hours, so you don't qualify for SSDI, but you qualify for SSI, which is Social Security Income. You can still work while you're on SSI, but what they do is for every $2 you make, they take $1 off of your SSI. So I should have double checked the numbers, but I think like SSI right now is like $774 a month. So if you make $2, they're going to deduct $1 from your SSI. So if you make $2 and your SSI is $774, that means they're going to take away $1. Wrong finger. Ha! They're going to take away $1 and give you $773, if that makes sense. So I guess a better way is like, okay, if SSI is $774 and you get a job and you make $500, what they will do is take half of that, $250, and deduct it off of your SSI. So that's a little bit of it's a little bit confusing to me. But if you qualify for disability benefits for SSI, you can sit down with a caseworker to find out if you want to work part-time, how it'll affect your benefits, but usually you're still ahead a little bit, because they might take, let's say you make $400 and they take $200 off and they leave you with $574, but you're getting $400, you're up to $974, which is $200 more than the $774 from SSI. But either way, I know it's confusing. Probably it sounds confusing to me right now because I'm not all there. I'm really tired. They have major fog going on today. But yeah, those are my tips to help you apply for benefits. What you need to do. Like, you cannot leave it up to Social Security to get all of your information. Basically, you just got to assume they're not going to do it, because a lot of times they don't. And the thing of it is that when Social Security requests medical documentation from doctors and medical facilities, if the doctor or medical facility doesn't send it, they're not going to chase after that medical documentation. That's it. They just send out a request once, and if they receive information, they do. If they don't, they don't. And when I was speaking with a disability attorney saying, hey, what's the number one reason you think people lose the first time around? And he was like, because half the time doctors and medical facilities don't send the medical documentation that Social Security requests. And then I step in as the attorney and win it on the appeal because I got all the medical documentation, and had all that medical documentation been turned in the first time, the person would have been approved the first time around instead of having to appeal. So basically, the unfortunate thing is your job when applying for benefits is to do everybody else's job. So that means try to get all the medical documentation you can up front before you even apply. See if you can get an old colleague, a parent, a spouse, significant other, sibling, and friend to write letters. And a lot of times you can make it easier for them and say, well, I need a letter and this is what it needs to say. If you want, like, tell me, I'll ask my friend, how have you seen me change because of fibromyalgia? And they'll tell me, and then I'll say, okay, I'm gonna type up a letter. Can I add that in there? A lot of times if you type it up and then you ask them, is there anything else I should add? Or you email it to them and they can add what else they want to say in that letter, then you're good to go. But it will help you. The more letters you have, especially if you have a connection with an old colleague, and let's say you went out on medical leave or you had to quit because of your illness, it's really going to strengthen your case that you said, hey, I worked with this buddy for 6 years and they saw me, the buddy says, yeah, I worked with Crystal, for 6 years, and over 6 years I noticed that she was becoming more and more sick. She was more fatigued. She was losing details. Her concentration was poor. There was times she was in so much pain at work she would go to the restroom to vomit. She would forget things, and she wasn't able to do everything that was prescribed in her job duties because of her illness. Now, if you got a cool work buddy that will write something like that, or if you type something along those lines and they sign it, that's cool. It is going to help you. So basically, list all medical conditions. Even if your fibro is so bad, it's not going to hurt you to list every single medical. I don't care if you got 20. I don't care if they're if you got fibro, IBS, Raynaud's syndrome, arthritis, bursitis, migraines, and you have shin splints, add your shin splints. Get documentation from every doctor you've seen over your lifetime, if possible. If you can't get it, request the information or get a disability attorney to help you to request that information. If you are thinking about applying, you need to communicate with all of your doctors across the board and tell them specific examples of how your medical conditions are interfering with your daily life and your inability to complete even simple tasks. If you're thinking about applying, branch out and go see a few other specialists. Go to physical therapy, go to a chiropractor. And also for chiropractor, if you want to save some money, go on Groupon.com or livingsocial.com. There's a ton of Groupons or discounted vouchers for a chiropractor. Buy 3 of them. Go to 3 different ones. Get a free exam. Tell them about all your conditions. Make sure, though, that exam includes x-rays, though. It's not going to do... It would be better if they do x-rays, because who knows? They might find something else. They might say, oh... that happened to me. I went to a chiropractor and they found that I was losing the curvature in my neck. Your neck is supposed to be curved like a banana, and it's called loss of lordosis is what they call it, meaning you've lost the curve in your neck. So my neck is completely straight, and so sometimes from the side it almost looks like like I'm pushed forward a little bit, it's because my neck is straight. And then the chiropractor found that because my muscles from the fibro get so tight and stiff and my knots are so big, it was pulling my spine out of alignment. So I was getting idiopathic scoliosis. So guess what? If you go to the chiropractor and you find out different things, you can add that to your list of disabilities. And I think they let you list like 10 or 12. So, I mean, if you have more than that, you can write it in somewhere else. But, so yeah, don't forget if you're applying, don't forget to add in medical documentation from the little people like physical therapists and chiropractors. And if you want to go to a chiropractor to get additional medical documentation to show that you tried another form of treatment for your fibro or your other medical conditions, then, go on Groupon and pay, some of them I've seen them as low as $25 for a free consultation or exam and x-rays. And then, between like 25 and 40, and you're getting x-rays, a consultation, and then you can ask them, be like, hey, can I get a copy of that? So, and just, you don't have to tell them you're applying for benefits. Just say, I see a specialist, and it would be a lot easier if you could just make me a photocopy, or can I come back and get it? Or can you send it to my doctor? Or, or if you get an attorney, they can request it. So basically, list all of your conditions, be open and talk about every little thing that your disabilities interfere with in your daily life. Get a list history of all the medications you've been on for as far back as you can go by going to all the pharmacies you've ever been to fill meds, and get copies of any blood tests, other tests, x-rays, ultrasounds, procedures. And, you can print them, you can request them. If you have private health insurance, you can create an account and go online and print them. List every emergency room and hospitalization you've ever had. Basically, like, as I said, list every single thing. And when you apply for benefits, it is a job. You need to can look at it as a job, and you need to do your job so that, you get the payout. You cannot, basically, don't depend on someone else to do the job for you, even though they're supposed to do it, unless if you have a disability attorney. Try to get as much of that information up front. Go ahead and get a disability attorney after you apply. Don't wait. Apply, and then if you get denied, get an attorney then. Get one right off the bat after you apply. So this is a very, very long video. And I feel like I'm probably missing stuff because it's such a complex topic. But I wanted you to kind of get inside the minds of what the people think at these agencies when they look at your applications, and don't discount any type of medical. If you went to urgent care or a walk-in clinic, you add that documentation, even if it was because you had a cold or urinary tract infection or a bee sting. Add it. I don't care if it's related or not. You add everything, and the kitchen sink, and your neighbor's kid, and the dog down the street, and maybe your Bible for good luck. No, I'm just kidding. So everything. I cannot stress it enough. Everything. Put everything. Throw everything at them. Everything. I cannot stress it enough. Everything. So, sorry for the long video. This was like a lecture. Kind of like I'm teaching. Yay. If you have any questions, comment below, because I know I'm forgetting stuff. And as soon as I press stop, I'm going to get mad because I'm going to be like, oh my God, I forgot this. Feel free to ask questions. A lot of this information is based for the United States, but the principles are the same in other countries. The more information you have, the more medical documentation, letters from people who have witnessed your decline, it's going to help you. The more, the merrier. And as I said, if you have any questions, leave a comment. And I hope you guys find this beneficial. I wish I could have done like a quick 20-minute version, but there's no way on this topic. And I apologize for the amount of time this took. but I really wanted to arm you guys with as much information as possible so that when you do apply, you have a better chance of winning the first time around. I'm not guaranteeing you're going to win the first time around. I don't know your situation. But these are just principles. These are tips. These are guidelines that are going to help strengthen your case. And it's better to hit the ground running the first time around than applying and then appealing and then applying and appealing. Do it right the first time. Don't be afraid to get a disability attorney. If you guys have ever applied and you won a case and you had a disability attorney and they were awesome, write a comment of your attorney's name, contact information, and phone number. And if you're in the state of Ohio in the United States, I know a couple of attorneys too. So if you are looking for an attorney, leave a comment and I'll give you my recommendation. I do know an attorney who is really awesome and they only specialize in disability cases and they've been in business for 30 years. They only do disability cases. They don't do car accidents or, I don't know, workman's comp. They don't do any of that. It's only disability cases. They've been doing it for over 30 years and they win over 90% of their cases. So I do have a good attorney in Ohio if you guys live in the state of Ohio. If any of you have applied and you had to get an attorney and your attorney is awesome, please leave a comment with that attorney's information, not just their name, contact information and phone number and what state or country they are living in. And that's all I gotta say. So it's Crystal here. I'm signing out. Peace out. And I hope y'all have a lovely day. Ta-ta for now.